Surfers Beach again, doing my walk. A little later today, big rainstorm came through this morning, so I finished off a few things. I wrote an article. I write for something called Financial Independence Report, which is FIR. And it's by Newsmax or Money News, which is the money arm of Newsmax. So I write an article for them every month. So I'm really being more disciplined now. So I'm writing an article for actually the October issue. The deadline's the end of August, and the November issue I'll have done. So so it's about agriculture. We'll talk about that in a second. Maybe we'll talk about agriculture and food and all that sort of thing. This is about as flat as it gets here. We're on the Atlantic side, so this is called Surfers Beach where I live. I'll give you a little information about Surfers Beach, and then we'll talk about agriculture. But so this is rare for the Bahamas, even though we still have, on a flat day like that, they're very pretty turquoise water, turquoise green, blue, whatever you want to call it. This beach, this area doesn't have a reef. So that's why they call it Surfers Beach. Obviously, it's dead today, partly because the wind is coming from the other direction. There's actually barely any breeze today, which is, again, why I could do the video. And the rain, everything kind of flattened out afterwards, after the little storm. So, but it's called Surfers Beach because there is no reef, and the water gets deep quicker, and you get wave action here, and people come to surf. A lot of people from all over the east coast of the U.S. I met some people here from Maine. The guy was surfing. Guy surfs in Maine. Can you believe that? You know, I guess there is good wave action there. He told me Nova Scotia is great, because I was telling him about I've never been to Maine, but I've been to Nova Scotia in Canada, and Nova Scotia really, he says, has good wave action. But to me, that water is too cold. Even in the summer, I don't know what that water gets to. Maybe 70. Probably more like mid-60s. And, you know, I was in San Sebastian and it was low 70s, a lot of surfing. I was like, to me that's cold, man. That's not surfing weather, you know, or whatever. That's not why I'm spoiled. Here the water's 83 degrees this time of year. So yeah, so there you go. See, no one here, probably because it rained earlier. A lot of the guys who would surf aren't coming out because there's no wave action. A lot of tourists aren't here because, you know, it rained earlier, etc. So I knew it was going to clear up, so I changed my plan usually in the day. I'm going to talk about exercise and health later because, you know, I did get that kidney stone last month, but we'll talk about that in another video. But my usual daily routine is I get up in the morning, I work out, do a bit of work, do this. I like to usually do this walk midday because you're in the midday sun, which is hot, so you kind of sweat it out a bit more. But obviously today I had to wait because I wanted to make sure the path is pretty tricky on the way down, so I wanted to make sure it was dried out, and you know, the beach was a little more dry as well. And then I get home and do a little bit more work, eat dinner. I try to eat early now because like I am losing weight, and then, you know, kind of just then watch some stuff on TV or whatever. I like to watch a lot of podcasts. Mostly I watch some financial podcasts if there's someone I like that's being interviewed, but to be honest with you, I've kind of grown tired of that. I watch usually sports or comedy, actually more comedy than anything. So anyhow, now we'll get into agriculture. So when I'm doing this article, is really interesting. I like doing these articles because it makes me kind of research stuff that maybe I otherwise wouldn't research. And of course, I think the biggest issue in agricultural commodities right now, it's about to get hot, by the way. With that rain, the humidity here, you know, the sand's a little wet. It's got a sauna-like feel to it, which is good. Gonna burn a few pounds off. But anyhow, in agriculture, I think what's interesting at the moment is more inputs into agriculture, fuel, fertilizer, potash, and now of course they're trying to crack down because of the nitrates that go into potash to create fertilizer, because they supposedly produce, those nitrates create a lot of greenhouse gases, and they want to get rid of them because of global warming, etc., etc. And if you want to know what you want about rising sea levels, this is about as low as I've ever seen this water. So I know people, oh, that's too simplistic. Oh, the North Pole is melting and the ice. Dude, when someone's like, oh, glaciers collapse. Glaciers are always collapsing and then coming back. In the 16th century, it was so warm in England, they had their own wine industry for a while. They had grapes in their own wine, like France and Italy did. So it's just, weather is cyclical. I'm willing to bet this ain't going to be underwater in 50 years. So, and if you're a climate alarmist, anyhow, and you believe in the bullocks, you shouldn't be watching my videos anyhow. No offense or anything, but anyhow, I'm actually pro a lot of green things because who wants air pollution and who wants all that crap? Who wants plastics and all that crap in the water, right? I see them wash up here on the beach. It's disgusting. Anyhow, to get back onto track, what I did in this article, I was looking for companies. I think obviously Russia and Belarus are two of the largest producers of fertilizers in the world. Belarus is actually combined, then we do more in Canada, which is the largest. Canada's first, Russia and Belarus are second and third. And so of course a lot of that Russia and Belarus stuff has come off the market. They're kind of allowing people to buy fertilizers from Russia because they know, they don't want the world to starve, right? So I think Bayer, the company, basically said they're going to keep selling certain elements that Russia uses to produce the fertilizers to them. And I think that's the reason why, that, because Russia then in turn sells, maybe even if North America or Western Europe won't buy Russian fertilizer, African countries, Asian countries will, and use that to help grow crops, right? So anyhow, so basically the thesis of my article, though, is you want to do three things. You want to look at the physical commodities because they've come off now from the highs. You want to buy companies that produce fertilizer because the world will be more dependent on these companies because a lot of countries won't buy from Russia or Belarus. It'll be more, or it's more difficult. And then you also want to, I've talked about AMP. I'm going to do a video on AMP shortly. You want to find companies that are using ammonia, which is considered a green gas and, kind of carbon neutral, to produce fertilizers, as well, because actually even dictator Trudeau may allow that from because he's trying to get all the farmers to cut their nitrate usage or greenhouse gas usage by 30%, which basically means fertilizer usage by 30%. But if you're using ammonia to do that, to produce the fertilizer, that's a huge thing because it doesn't have the greenhouse gas that the other production of fertilizer using heavy nitrates does. Anyhow, that's kind of like, I know it's logistical, I don't want to get too detailed into that crap, but anyhow, companies that produce ammonia. So that's what you're going to kind of look at. And this is where going to be a caveat, I'm going to be a tease. I'm not going to really mention many of these companies because number one, out of respect to Newsmax, they pay me for those articles. Number two, because I'm starting my own newsletter, but I did find a bunch. One company actually pays a 7% dividend. They all trade at like single-digit PDEs, and you've all come off from the tops because you've kind of had that panic buying Russia and down. But one thing we are seeing is we're still seeing fertilizer prices hold at high levels. that's one reason everyone talks about the fuel costs. That's the real reason food is going up, by the way. Not fuel, because fuel's back to where it was before the Russian invasion. It's because fertilizer costs are so high that trickles down the supply chain. And that's why food costs are so high. And by the way, that's also, now I'll get off that, but like, again, subscribe to my newsletter. Those who are lifetime members and get the trial to the elite membership, you'll get that. But anyhow, you'll get the stocks that I like in that sector. And of course, you all know about AMP. AMP is probably my small cap of choice. And that's the real problem with inflation. Everyone's like, it ticked down 8.5. Everyone's going crazy, this and that, right? And the problem right now, if the Fed were to pivot, and this is why you are seeing commodities not struggling and not going up, because I think the commodity markets know the Fed isn't going to pivot. Stock market's got, maybe that's what we'll go on to. But anyhow, that's what I'm trying to say, is that food and housing are such big input costs for the average person. That's where, inflation is killing them. And that has not come down yet at all. Like that, those costs are still near their highs there. So, anyhow, so the next thing we'll talk about quickly. Let's talk about meme stock madness, right? It's a good one for today. Meme stock madness. So today the market was kind of like selling off early, and then it came back, and then stocks like Fubo and Bed Bath & Beyond were up, 50, 60, 70%. These are stocks that companies that are really struggling, borderline could be going bankrupt. I tried to play Fubo in options earlier this year. I made a bit of money in the puts, lost a bit of money in the calls. Should have kept the calls. This is why sometimes, I'm talking about, and I was actually thinking about buying Bed Bath & Beyond at $5 a few weeks ago, because it hit my maximum pessimism deal where the stock was off like 90% from its high. Same with Fubo when it was $2 to $3. So it just tells you, regardless of what you think of the macro market, there are all these unique opportunities, and I should have followed my own belief system of buying maximum pessimism. But anyhow, there's no reason for these stocks to be up 200, 300, 400%. Okay, it's like a bottom in the market, and we're coming out of that like 2009. Many stocks overshoot to the downside, fine, but these companies are still losing money, have very bad fundamentals, other than the fact that they got so cheap. And I think it's just a sign when you're seeing that, GameStop's rallied again, AMC's rallied again. That's a sign we're nowhere near any kind of bottom in the market. When you got that kind of frothiness, just 2 months off a low, and people are playing and gambling on these stocks, you don't have to know anything about price to earnings ratios or price to sales or the Buffett indicator, market cap to GDP. That's all you have to see. And that just tells you it's too frothy. So anyhow, what can you do about it? Anyhow, I'm going to leave it at that. I like to keep these between 10 and 15 minutes. It's like 13 minutes. I'm going to turn around right about here. Anyhow, and walk back. So if you can see that little, that little kind of shed in the distance, that's where I walk to and back. So basically the walk, just to finish on that note, is about half an hour to get down, half an hour to get back up home, and about a half an hour on the beach. I think it's actually 20 down, and 40 on the beach. That's actually about what it is. And it's about 3 miles, but it's probably more the equivalent of 6 miles, because it's up and down a 200-foot hill. And this sand, I'm walking near the ocean. Sometimes I do walk up there, but even near the ocean, this is not an easy trek. Like, this is deep, duney sand. Okay, everybody, take care.